Welcome to The Intentional Way, where literally every moment is a step towards purposeful living. I'm Bryan Hatch, here to explore the power of intention with you. Learn from our guests who embody intentionality. I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to another episode of The Intentional Way. I'm your host, Bryan Hatch, and there's these episodes that we do. They've become friends to me, and on the episode today, we have a true friend. Someone that I would introduce as someone that's always there in such a useful way. You know, there's times when you say, man, I wish I could have help doing this, or I need help lifting that, or I need help doing these things. And besides the fact that this guy's an amazing entrepreneur and doing all these cool things in his life, he's just a dude that's there for me in ways that I don't think I have anybody else that's quite the same. And I love and appreciate that about him. Our guest today is Danjee Moser. He is an entrepreneur. He owns Gateway Restoration, and he's done a myriad of different entrepreneurial things in his life. So I'm excited to hear about some of those possibly. But more than that, I think he's just a phenomenal guy to be around. I love the insights. We have chats on occasion that have struck my soul, and so I'm just glad to have you here with us, Danjee.
Yeah, grateful for the opportunity, man. It's fun stuff.
Well, we talk about the intentional way. That like this, it's all about intention. So, Danjee, there's a million places we could go. There's a million things we've done. And I guess, we've hiked the Grand Canyon together, rim to rim to rim. Yeah. And that was a first for me, not the first time for you.
Felt like it.
Yeah.
Felt like it'd been a while, yeah.
How long had it been since between
10 years.
10 years. Yeah, that's
total difference. Yeah.
That's a bit of difference.
Yeah. Everybody says when you get over 40, it's going to be totally different. I was like, no way. Yeah, it is. Totally. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, I was just glad that you were, I think back to that time, and if I share a little bit about my experience, I never felt anything but help and support as a friend there with you, because there's times where I was holding us back, man. There's definite times where I was holding back. And I love that you were just like, all right, dude, let's go. Here we go. But no, like, come on, dude. Golly, dude, why don't you hurry it up?
You kidding me? I was enjoying the rest, man. It was good. And you were pulling us in the beginning, so don't take it all.
The beginning I did well. In the end, I need some crutches, It's all right.
Yeah.
So, Danjee, where do we start? Where in this topic of intention?
I don't know, man. I love your podcast, and I think that when it comes to intention, like if you lack being intentional about life at all, then you're non-intentionally being driven, because there's good and evil in this world, and evil's always acting, and we have to intentionally act for good, or evil takes over. It's just how it goes, right? So non-action is action, in my opinion. And as I'm sitting there thinking about being intentional about how we live, if we're not being intentional, if we're not focused on something, then we're like sitting in a river not paddling. We're going a direction, and that's a reality, I think, in life, and can sometimes be super traumatic for some of us. There's a lot to carry, and with family and everybody that's counting on us, there's a lot on our shoulders, and when we just stand still, we're moving in the wrong direction.
So as you mentioned, standing still is still going in a direction. So what does that mean to you?
Well, it's a choice, right? It's a choice. Like my dad was always, he heard the old Indian story about, the Indian grandpa took his grandson up and said, hey, showed him two wolves. The one's a good and one's a bad, and which one are you going to feed? And there's just a reality that time creates momentum in life, right? We have a beginning, we have an end. And in that, what goes on in the middle is where everything happens, right? And it's moving. Time is moving. It's never stopping. So there's a current that's always going against us, and there's good and evil that are, and evil especially is always trying to take over. Good we have to purposely do. It's about being intentional about being good. It's easy to be bad. It's natural. So it's easy and natural to feed the bad wolf, and the good wolf has to be really intentionally fed in our lives.
Yeah. I think that many people would identify with when I avoid, when I'm like getting away from something, I'm not creating, I'm not going in a direction, they kind of feel like it's a lack of movement.
Yeah.
So why do you explain it the way you do?
Probably because it makes sense in my crazy mind, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it makes sense to recognize that when I'm sitting still, I'm not doing anything. So it gets me up in the morning. It makes me purposely. And I've also lived at times when I'm so depressed and I'm down and I don't know how to break free of it. I don't know how to get moving. And it's because I'm not being intentional, right? It's because I'm not focusing on actually doing something. I'm not recognizing my limit of time in this life, and not striving to achieve my full potential. My full potential's been left out to hopium, and I think hopium's a drug nobody should smoke.
Opium.
Yeah, it's just one you shouldn't smoke. So you can't hope that the outcome of your life, that you're going to achieve your potential if you don't actually focus on intentionally striving for your potential. You can't achieve your potential if you don't find your limits, because you don't know what your limits are, and you've never met your limit. You never know what you're capable of. And so I think it's super important that we focus on being intentional and not allow ourselves to get to that point where we're spinning our wheels and we get stuck in life, right? And that, for me, it's happened constantly, besides getting my own truck stuck and having to get it out. But the correlation and an analogy of how to get unstuck in a truck is very similar in life. You have to find intentionally find some traction to get yourself from spinning your wheels, because you get burnout. And that's when you want to quit and you want to stop. And so for me, because I've had to face that so often, I'm getting back to your original question, is that in order for me to keep from getting stuck and depressed and down, and where the weight becomes super heavy in life, I have to keep myself moving and intentionally focused on what I want to accomplish, and always pushing my limits, and get up every day early and just go like crazy. And you only sleep when you're dead, man. You just crash when you have to, sleep when you have to, and just keep going. Just keep trying to find something to achieve.
So if I've identified a place where I am either avoiding, I'm not moving forward, I'm stuck, I'm in a rut, or wherever that is, I recognize that I'm not moving, feeding the good, intentionally feeding good as opposed to letting the bad happen as it is. How do you get out of that stuck place so that you can start feeding the good?
That's like the age-old question, right? Because when you're in the difficult time and you're struggling to get up and you're overeating and you're not living the way that you should, and you feel stuck, you just feel stuck because, there's lots of things, right? You might be going through divorce. You might have something super challenging in life that literally, and I'm the kind of person, I want it done. I'm a microwave person. I'm like, I want it now, right?
Yeah.
So when things cause me to actually have patience, I can get really worn down, because I can't, if you just told me, look, if you just go run 100 miles, okay, I'll gut the 100 miles out, because I just want it over with. I want to get done. And a lot of us, I believe, at least myself, when I'm stuck in a situation like that, I just plain don't know how to get out of it. And so I think the answer to that question for me, and I think for a lot of people, if they were to do it, is to try to find some way to gain some sort of traction in life. Because I believe there's 3 pillars of happiness in life that create happiness. And one of them is progress. And if we are not progressing and moving forward, we cannot find happiness. And the only way to really do that is to intentionally focus on something. And in some areas, when you can't go, you cannot ruminate on that one thing. Because the time element that, you say you have to pay off something. Like I recently am going through a partnership buyout, right? And that's so frustrating. And you're just struggling to get that done. And every month it's a giant chunk, a big check. And you have to sit back and you have to be like, it's okay. I can't change. But what I can change, and it goes back to the canyon a little bit, because as well as I do, you kind of committed me to go again. I didn't want to. I remembered the pain. But putting my focus on something outside, something abstract, something that made me feel alive, actually is one of the ways that pulled me through a difficult time, right? And helped me start to get traction. And that traction then added itself or pulled itself into the other parts of my life. And the hard parts of my life actually started to become easier because I was at least living somewhere. I didn't feel stuck in all areas of my life. In that area of my life, I could start doing it. And sometimes we just have to do that. We got to get a little bit of traction somewhere, and something that we know we can accomplish. And I have this other thing that I use called CAPS. It's called commit, accomplish, progress, and success. I feel that success. And a lot of times we go through life, we just grind, especially as dads, we're just grinding and grinding. We don't ever stop to just feel successful about small accomplishments. We're constantly looking for the end. That's me at least. I'm always looking for the end. I want that microwave, get me there fast. And I forget to enjoy this journey, this climb, not find the joy in that climb, because we don't find the success. It's like we all want to be an Ironman, and we all want to hear somebody yell, hey, you're an Ironman when you cross over the line. But none of us think back to all the successes that got us there, because those are the real success, not the Ironman medal. The real success is the time we pushed ourselves past, the time we wanted to quit, the time we said, no, 5 more miles, no, 10 more miles. The time we even went triple what we thought we could do because we just plain wouldn't quit. Those are the real successes in life, and we forget to feel that success and reward ourselves for them. That's what helps me get out of that problem, is just finding something outside that I can succeed at, that I can do, and start small if I have to. And then once I start getting that momentum, it just trickles into the rest of my life, and I can find the ability to get out of that slump and get unstuck so I'm not spinning my wheels. That's my answer to that.
Yeah. So you're saying that if you feel stuck in an area that you said to not ruminate, then the other thing to do is would you say find something in that category and push through? Or you're saying find anything in your life and find a way to succeed in it?
Something. Okay. Yeah. Because when things are really big, like, people go through divorce, and I've never been through one, thank goodness. She hasn't kicked me out yet and still likes me, so she pretends really well. But going through a divorce, maybe, it's so monumental that it feels like it covers everything. We might feel like we're a failure. We might feel like and maybe we have failed. Take responsibility for it.
We all do, though.
Sure, we all do. We all make mistakes and we fail. But recognizing that, and then just finding something, because what in that divorce can you really do? You got to go through the whole process. That's just one example, but you got to go through that whole process. So you can't really change that. So if you stay and ruminate on it, you can't get out. You're just stuck in it. And it actually draws everything in life in like a black hole. Whereas if you can just focus outside of something that makes you feel better about you, about life, about existence, about living, and just focus on, you obviously can't spend 8 hours a day doing that.
Yeah.
But maybe it's an hour. You're finding something to get some success.
Yeah.
Go serve somebody. That's one of the best things to do, is to forget about yourself for a second and take care of someone else. You'll feel instant success, and it gives you traction.
Huh. So you've given us a way. The service is one way you can do that. Why is it that getting outside of the stuckness, you do something else to seek progression, whether it's something small, something in your yard, something in your house, something that you can accomplish for a small amount of time, or go give service? Why is that the key, as opposed to, man, I know that this is my problem and I got to fix this problem?
No, because you can't, right? That's what I'm talking about, is that some things in life you can't fix necessarily, because you have to fix you first. So the problem is not the external thing. It's like David and Goliath, right? That's one of my favorite, it is my favorite story of all time. David didn't kill Goliath because he was David and just because of God. He had killed other things before. He had proven himself in multiple ways. He had overcome himself and the giant within him before he could kill the giant outside. And so most of us, the biggest reason that we struggle, I believe, is because we get the Goliath inside is winning. We're allowing that bad wolf to eat all the food. And our good wolf, the wolf of hope, the wolf of dreams, the wolf of faith, the wolf of caring and gratitude and progress, all those things, all the positive things in life that light is being shut out by the darkness that we're feeling because we're allowing Goliath inside. So we have to conquer Goliath inside, and then we can deal with the problems that seem monumental outside. But we can't do that till we've conquered the things inside that we need to. And that's why this little bit of success just breaks us out. It's just picking away at that feeling of allowing Goliath to be too big within us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why is it that there are a lot of men nowadays that feel that way, that get stuck so inherently in whatever is a problem and then don't make progress, or at least struggle to make progress?
Well, there's a lot of really controversial reasons. I would even sound sexist if I fully explained it. But, all men can understand a little bit, all race, creeds, whatever, can understand a little bit of how and why men are feeling more deflated now than ever before. Before, it was our power and our strength that fed into all of the things that make a man, right? And that's what people celebrated before, was the powerful, strong man that could do everything. Right now, we've been demasculinized in a sense. When we look at society and different things, our job is just to kind of shut up and do our job and go there. And if we're too aggressive, or if we're too this or too that, then we feel like less and less of men. And I think that's the controversial side, but I think it's very real. And I think it's obvious that being a true man is almost frowned upon a little bit, right? And so we kind of lost our place. And that's one reason I think that that we get like that. I also think that the world itself has gotten so difficult when it comes to just the things outside. You've got pornography, you've got all these, I mean, I'm trying to think of others, but you got all of these different challenges that we have to, in different areas. You have political problems and things like that just tax and push down the man, and it makes it very difficult. We got mistakes, we got selfishness, we got comparison. Everything in life is being exploited to massive amounts of scale because of the internet, because we can see it. Because you see these guys that know how to go out and get a bunch of followers or whatever, and they become these important, popular people, and they're not feeding the good wolf necessarily. Some are, obviously, and I mean, you're doing it, and you're doing a great job. But then there's those other ones that are not, and so it makes a lot of people feel deflated because they don't find, I think it's another one of the pillars of happiness, and that's gratitude. We lack being able to find gratitude in life for the things that we have and where we're at, the gifts that we have, even the challenges or the crosses we bear. Like, the difficulty in life is really one of the greatest rewards, in a sense. But I think we get down because we aren't quite as good, or we aren't what we wish we could be, because the world has just kind of pushed us down, and there's lots to compare ourselves to, and that gets difficult, man. And then other challenges in life really tend to kick us in the teeth. So
I feel like at some level because it's been information overload for decades, or at least a decade, we could call it more than that. Yeah. I feel like there's some push in society internally. I don't know that it's like exposed by everybody, that we want to simplify it and do good, like meaning make the progress, overcome some of the challenges. Whereas in the past, maybe we didn't have as many distractions, so it wasn't so confusing to try to find progress. I feel like you could take 3,000 different ways to do something and maybe barely make progress anyway. So it's a challenge right now.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe, follow, and download our episode. Your support allows us to bring more intentional guests just like this, and it means the world to us. Now, let's get back to the episode.
That's a good point.
So bring us back on the ground a little bit. You've said challenge, you've said trial, like having challenges is a blessing. Tell us an experience you've had that would help us understand where you've come from on that.
The beauty of what we're talking about right now is that I have literally gone through it. I raced motocross for lots of years when I had some severe accidents. And those accidents, most of them I bounced through just like nothing, right? And in fact, if people just looked at it, they would look at my worst accident as something you could bounce through. But when you have like something like that then takes your whole life and just kind of destroys it, regardless of how stupid it was for me to assume that I was ever going to be of any kind of massive impact in the motocross world from the age that I started at and different things. I still had a dream, right? And that dream was motivating to me. It even motivated me in business. I wanted to find time to be able to race more, and I really wanted my pro card and start racing, supercross and stupid things like that. But then it was all dashed, right? And so challenges in life come at us and they hit us like that. And then when we can't rescope our dream, we can't reform our dream, we get lost for a time, right? And so learning how to bounce out of that is what has helped me so much, because it seems like, and I'm probably just because I'm selfish and I look at myself more, everyone goes through major challenges. But as I've fought through those, I've journaled a lot and thought about it a lot. I also went through my spiritual change, which was a massive impact on my life. And so going through all those things and keeping track of how I did it is really what's been the thing that helps me bounce through all of these other challenges in life. And I'm super thankful for just what I've learned for myself that way. But if I was to say what I learned more than anything, when my accident, I broke a whole bunch of bones. I was in a coma for a few days, and I was in the hospital for a month.
And you just bounced back from this, huh?
Yeah, I know. It was terrible. I broke 20 some bones. I didn't know my wife's name for almost a month. I had to hire somebody to drive me around, because if I drove down to the gas station, I'd get lost. I was in a wheelchair for almost a month, or 3 weeks. Then I went to a walker, and the problem was I was racing motocross. I had a business running. I had 15 or 20 employees at the time. My jaws were wired shut because I compound fractured my lower jaw. And so having my jaws wired shut, I couldn't hardly talk to people. So I had to learn to talk through my lips. It was the craziest thing. I'm in a wheelchair, so I couldn't get anywhere. I had people running my business that didn't know how to run my business. It was just a terrible thing, right? But what I did, and this goes back to the canyon, which is crazy, but I made the commitment because I was told I would never walk normal again, and running was a big deal to me, and being able to walk normal, not like Quasimodo, was important too. I made the commitment that I was going to walk and run eventually someday. Finally, I made the commitment. Once I felt like I was gonna, they took the stuff out of my leg and I was able to start getting some mobility. I committed to doing the Grand Canyon. It was a super hard challenge. I spent hours and hours while I was working trying to flex and stretch my leg out because I broke my leg in my foot really, really bad. And finally, dude, it started to work out. I started to be able to start to jog. And within a year, I got to do the Grand Canyon for the first time, which was only rim to rim. 6 months later.
Only rim to rim.
Yeah, I know, but it was super awesome. But I guess to what my point is what was important about that is that the darkest time that I ever had was the time that I was fighting backwards. I was not the gazelle. I was the gazelle. I wasn't the lion. I wasn't the one that was focusing. I didn't take the challenge, recognize the challenge, know I couldn't do anything about the challenge, and automatically refocus. I sat and smoldered on feeling bad about myself. And I let Goliath grow. And I fed the bad wolf with lack of hope, lack of desire, lack of even thinking I could even accomplish anything beyond that. All my dreams were gone. I was nothing without motocross. I mean, so stupid, right?
Not necessarily, but I'm hearing you.
But what had to happen and what I've recognized is that it's the ability to recognize that what you think is going to happen is most likely not. So be ready for the challenge that's coming, because it's coming. Don't anticipate that it's going to go the way you want, because that is a very vulnerable and a stupid spot to be. You have to be able to experience the challenge, refocus on something around it or through it, right? Because it's going to rain. It's going to rain. The storms are going to come no matter what in life, but they won't last forever. Just because it's cloudy above us doesn't mean the sun isn't shining on the other side of the clouds. And so we just have to be like the buffalo and run into the storm, refocus our efforts, recognize that we're God's gift to this earth and that we can do what we need to do and that God created us for a reason, and push forward to some other goal. And that's, I think, what I've learned from overcoming is just that it does zero good to just sit in the rain. You just get wet. Doesn't do anything.
Better to run into the wet than just wait for it to come to you.
Chase it. Just go straight into it.
Now, if we can take that analogy, like you're going into the trial, you're going into the hardship, you're going into whatever's challenging for you, and you're saying that that's a better way than to let it happen. And I'm trying to equate in my mind or correlate these. You said what you think is going to happen isn't.
It almost never does. You can plan out a business idea. You can have a business plan. I don't know anybody's business plan that's ever worked out perfectly. Like you get started and all of a sudden, oh, there's a recession. Oh, there's inflation. Oh, crap, there's this. And the insurance world changes like it has in my world. Everything changes and we don't have control over that. So what we have to do is just control what's here. It's all we can control. And recognize that it's never going to be exactly how we want. As soon as you do that, you become vulnerable, right? And it's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. And I think if I think something's going to happen, then I can anticipate that a little bit. And maybe I'm thinking of it differently than you are. But to think that everything's going to be perfect and nothing's going to change the way things are, that makes a lot of sense to me, because it seems silly for us to go through thinking, oh yeah, everything's consistent. Everything that I do is on repeat. Nothing ever changes outside of the norm, because something's going to change outside of the norm.
And if it doesn't, you should change it anyway. Because honestly, I used to think the lion that's my spirit animal, right? I want to be like the lion. I watched this, it might have been National Geographic, something back in the day. And this lion broke his jaw and he was, chasing some animal, pride killed it. But this one lion, his jaw was broken. I mean, he got completely dislocated off. But this sucker, dude, I remember as a kid, just it zoomed in on his eyes or whatever, and his eyes were still intense, right? And I'm like, oh, that's what I want. That lion, right? But the more I thought about the greatest example of how I want to live my life, it's the billy goat. It's a mountain goat, the white goat with the black horns, because he lives on the hill. He goes where no one else can go. He lives in a place that's too dangerous for most to even go. And he doesn't even bat an eye. In fact, he starts it as he have their kids on that mountain, right? They never go to the top, and they're never in the valley. They're always in the climb, and they are happy to be in the climb, right? So as we look at the challenges that might be coming, a lot of people might get anxiety from different things. They might, when you look too far into the future, you get anxiety. When you look into the past, you can get depressed. When you stay in the now, you can do just fine, right? If you just stay focused on the now. The problem is that, not the problem, but what we have to do is look at the future, not as though their challenges are going, what challenge is going to come and eat me up and ruin my plans and my dreams. It's not about that. It's just recognizing that it's still, regardless of what you're focused on, it's still one step at a time. And stay in the step. Don't try to experience anything outside. Just know it's going to change. There's going to be obstacles. And if we can look at those obstacles as opportunities instead of stumbling blocks, they're blocks that we build our brick house with. They're not stumbling blocks. They're the blocks we use to elevate ourselves. The challenge of what we experience in life is actually the greatest accomplishment. It's the thing that gives us accomplishment. It's the thing that increases growth. It does all of that. I've probably talked to you about this at some other point, but Jesus carried a cross, right? Mm-hmm. And it was his cross that he had to bear in his life that elevated him to where he was at in his final destination on this earth before he came back. And he was elevated up on the cross. And it was the challenge of carrying that cross. And that cross is what elevated him to his position as a person who saved this world. And in our lives, the cross we bear, the heavier it is, the taller it is, the more awkward it is, the more difficult it is. It's what elevates us. It shouldn't be looked at as a burden as much as an opportunity, because every challenge creates growth. The lack of challenge creates weakness. And that's another way of feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf, is progress. And that's actually one of the other pillars of the 3 pillars of happiness, is progress, gratitude, and connection.
So now I know what to call you, Billy Goat.
The Billy, don't call me a goat. I got a long ways to go. Yeah.
But the Billy Goat, you said, loves the climb, and you equated the Savior carried a cross, right? I don't know about the Billy Goat. I don't know. I mean, that I like that.
Call it a mountain goat. Billy Goat sounds weird. It's more like a farm animal.
Hey, you said Billy Goat.
I made a mistake.
But the goat that's climbing up the mountain, right? I don't know what he's thinking, but I know what it's like to do something hard. Mm-hmm. As we went through the canyon, there are times where it's like just one foot in front of the other. And in about 30 steps, dude, I'm going to have to stop. I know how I experienced that. If I'm not equating it to carrying a cross, but I'm just saying I know what struggle is for me. And that's a hard place to do anything but focus on the struggle.
It is.
Is that what we shouldn't do? Because you've said, do hard things, get outside yourself. Weakness comes from, being comfortable and not pushing yourself. I'm pushing myself, and all I'm thinking about is the pain that I'm in while I'm in the pain. Once I get a relief, once I get a little bit of a downhill, once I get a little bit of a flat, once I get out of this kind of a climb, I can actually say oh yeah, I can reflect. But during the climb, and I've always said I prefer to go uphill than to downhill.
Sure.
But it's the downhill and the flat where I can actually look back at that and be like, oh, this is what I learned from that. Because in it, it's just go. I don't know. Do you experience it differently?
No. Well, no. I mean, we all have limits, right? In our climb. So in the first part of the climb, you're probably still looking at the next step. The next time, fine, because you got energy. And when you lose energy and you feel that pain, when you focus on the pain becomes bigger. I don't know. I know for me, and I'm sure for most people, you're doing push-ups, right? You tell yourself, I'm going to do 50 push-ups. Now don't think about 50 and just do push-ups, right? Let's say 50 is a struggle for you. You're just counting, but you're only counting on the backside of your mind. And during it, you're thinking about something else, like try reciting a poem, something else. Think about business or some other alternative thought process. Well, now you've actually removed it, and you'll get to 60. All of a sudden, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I just totally did 60 push-ups instead of 50 because I wasn't focused on 50. And I don't know how many times when I'm lifting weights or something, I'll tell myself, okay, 10 reps. And by 9, I'm dead. But if I don't tell myself how many reps, I'll do 15 of the same weight because I didn't limit myself. And that's one of the biggest challenges, because I think the greatest loss in this life, the greatest loss we can experience is the loss of potential. We have a time frame, and we only have that much time on this life to accomplish our greatest things, right? To build that dash in between the two dates on our headstone. That is where the magic happens. And what we do is we limit ourselves by putting a top or an end or a finish line to too much. And though there are realities to finish lines and tops, the finish line should literally be nothing more than a few minutes to reflect on the travel and to start a new focus, because that's it. And then when it comes to setting imaginary deadlines for ourselves and things like that, I think we do it too much because we don't push ourselves as hard. We should push to failure every time. Push ourselves to failure. Give it everything we've got until we can't. And that's spiritually, it's emotionally. You can go and, if you sit and you tell yourself, well, I'm only going to do one service project this week or this month, or every day I'm going to do one thing nice for people. Why? That's dumb. You're only going to do one good, nice thing, and now you've checked the box. What about the potential of the things that you missed because you opened the door for the person, but yet the person on the side of the road is where you could have had the greatest spiritual experience of the month or whatever, but you missed it because you already checked the box. Like, if we just do what we need to do and do it all the time, the best we can, and we're going to fulfill our potential. And we won't miss that. We won't have that terrible thing at the end of our life when the ghosts of potential are there to shake our hand, the missed potential that we didn't have. Instead, we'll get to be there with our family and with those successes that we get to reflect on. If we get to lay in the deathbed, I'm hoping I don't. I'm hoping I just go. Does that mean? I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is that we just can't set these limits for ourselves. It doesn't do any good.
I've noticed that principle at play in my life, specifically around like running, biking, hiking. When there is an end, like the right before the end is the challenge. It's weird. Yeah. Like I was riding a bike for several miles, and I said to myself, I'm going to stop at this point. This lap or this mile count, whatever it was. And I remember the last 2 miles of that bike ride were really hard. And I thought about that. I was like, why was it so hard? The previous 48 miles to this bike ride, like they had their challenge, but it wasn't as hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know, looking at some of the stats, I don't think that I was going all that much faster or slower in those last 2 miles. But for whatever reason, the mentality of like, there's an end to this. All the things started to hurt. My knees started to hurt, ankles, and like everything started to hurt more. And I thought that was so weird because it didn't hurt before that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. The interesting thing is, though, because you don't want to diminish the idea of having a goal. Because I do believe that you have to become an extremely mentally strong person. I almost said mentally challenged because that's not.
You have to be a mentally challenged person.
Yeah, you have to become a mentally strong person to be able to just push yourself to the limits. Because when you're in a challenge where you're stuck, right, where life is stuck and you're trying to get out, going back to what we originally started talking about, you have to have a goal, right? And I think we do that to set goals to get ourselves to at least push forward. It gives us something to go for, but it can also be very limiting. And so I think when you become mentally strong enough that you really can give it everything you've got to the very end of what you're capable of within the time frame that you have. Like, when it comes to your work, you're sitting working and you have 8 to 10 hours during that day, and then your wife needs something. Well, during that 8 to 10 hours, what would it mean to just give it everything, right? And to just automatically have the mental fortitude to not get distracted, not jump on doing this, not get distracted by this, not doing that, because you are mentally strong and focused on what you want to accomplish within that time frame. That takes a lot of getting used to, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we as humans have gotten so used to relaxing, and we want to have that. We want to get to the end, and we want to have our Gatorade and sit and relax, when in reality, the relaxation should be like, we want to limit how much we have to do. We need to focus on that. The relaxation and the sitting still is the easy route. And that's what's going to cause us the worst problems in life. And so we should minimize that, maximize the difficulty, minimize how much we rest, and only rest when necessary. Because it's important, but it can't be the focus. If that's the focus, then that feels like the reward. And you can reward yourself with rest all the time till you're homeless and completely, numb. So we have to change the focus from it's the rest that I'm trying to get to, or it's the success, it's the trophy. No, it's not. This challenge is the greatest blessing of my life. Each challenge is the greatest blessing we have in life. It makes us better. It makes us stronger. I'm sure lots of people struggle. Obviously, David Goggins doesn't struggle with it. Certain people, they're like, well, at least in certain elements of their life. But I've seen very few people that have that kind of tenacity in all aspects of their life. Both emotions and physical and spiritual, and being able to stay focused on just accomplishing your full potential in all areas of life. That is the greatest thing to aspire to, in my opinion.
I love what you said. It actually makes me think of a lot of things I want to alter in my life. So I love what you've said. And the next logical place that my mind goes is burnout. There's the go, 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 the never quit, never fail, don't rest, don't sleep, don't do, like, how do you do what you've just said and still not burn out?
Well, rest is important. You do have to schedule yourself to get that 6 to 8 hours of sleep every single day. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? I personally do not believe that burnout happens because you're trying too hard. Burnout happens when you're stuck. Burnout happens when you forget to allow yourself to feel success, to reward yourself. I think it's just the way it is in my life. I think people say that you're going to get burnt out, and they do that as an excuse to just slow down, to not do more, to be able to sit on the couch. I'm tired of my diet. I'm going to go eat some chips. That's your reward for all your hard work? Like, it's the mindset that we've been indoctrinated with, that the end is the goal. No, it's not. The existence should be the goal. And I think that if we can change our mindset from the fact that I need all this rest. I need to watch Instagram. I need to disconnect. I need to go in my room and watch Instagram or television or whatever before I can go see my family after work, because I've heard that, right? Mm-hmm. Please tell me how that makes any sense at all, right? What needs to happen? Now, maybe for a short time, because you really are strung out and stuck. But once you're unstuck and you unstick yourself, I'm going through more challenges right now in my life than I ever have in my life. But I'm so grateful. I thank God every day that somehow he's given me the ability to see past the trees, the storm, and to know that there's sun on the other side. And even if there's not sunlight on the other side, running through this rain is dang fun. Sorry. It's fun. I get the challenge, and the challenge is the victory. It's not necessarily overcoming the challenge. I mean, if you're a spiritual person and you think that eternal progress doesn't happen standing still. Progress happens by consistently moving in the direction of what you want to accomplish. So I don't think that burnout happens. I think that that's wrong. I think that burnout happens when you don't balance. And balance doesn't necessarily mean, in my life, it doesn't mean that I can't balance my life. And this is like the Gen Z idea or whatever, right? And I'm a little older than Gen Z. But you can't balance your life by saying, well, I'm going to spend 8 hours of work and 8 hours with my family. It's not about time. It's about quality. So I walk with my wife every single night. Every single night. We very rarely miss, unless it's too hot in Arizona and she doesn't want to go out in the heat. And then we'll sit down and talk. But we spend a quality 1 hour every day. That's the time I get with my wife. And that quality time is where we talk, we fight, we do all of our marital things in that hour or so. Right? That's where we connect. And we focus specifically to make that hour of walking the most therapeutic relationship building experience. And believe me, we've been in challenges. My wife and I almost got annulled our marriage at 1 year. And then she found out she was pregnant. And I said, no, you can't go that easy. Not if I got a baby in the world. So we fought, and we've fought through this life like crazy, just like every marriage is difficult. And the ones that say they aren't are lying, or they're just not trying hard enough. But that day, spending that quality time. And then, where I fail sometimes is spending the quality time. And I know you do really good at this, but spending time with my kids on a quality basis and striving to do that. But instead of trying to balance out time, balance just when you get the time to spend with those people, you make that the most important thing in the world during that time. And if you can do that, I don't believe burnout will happen, because you will. And when you do rest, you rest specifically on purpose with a specific thing in mind, right? You don't waste our time on social media and all this other crap, or surfing the internet, or watching YouTube, whatever. That is not true rest. True rest is, sometimes it's a 5-minute power nap. Sometimes it's I'm going to intentionally do this rest right now, and specifically intentionally doing it in our life and making it quality, because you're never going to get full balance. And when you feel like you're going to burn out, take a rest, but do it specifically with a time frame, and do it on purpose, and really do what you need to do to get the rest. You won't burn out. I don't believe it's possible.
Yeah. You're making me remember a time in my life, and actually I do this at least once a year. I'm coming up on that this week, actually, serendipitously here, that I dedicated and said, I'm going to use every minute effectively. I'm not going to do anything that's not on my list of things that I want to do. And want to do isn't watching 4 movies in a row. Like, that's not like what I want. It's accomplishing these things that I've wanted to, projects here, or get that thing done, or help somebody else, or like that's an actual list of things that I dedicated and said, these matter to me. I'm going to do these things. And none of them are entertainment based. They're all like accomplishing something. And in that period of time, it's crazy. I didn't think about this until you've said what you said. I didn't experience burnout. I experienced like, oh gosh, it was like literally to go to bed without anything left.
I love that.
You know? And don't anybody hear me and think that that's how I live every single day. But I have the intention of getting to that point on a consistent basis. That's why I do it at least once a year for about a month, so that I can remember how good that is, as opposed to all the distractions we allow in. We just let them in. And I love that you said, like, for this quote unquote burnout of like, it's just so stressed. I need to watch this movie.
Yeah. You know what that is?
And all that is avoidance of the problem.
Exactly.
And it just exacerbates. It makes it worse is all it does.
Just like when you focus on your legs when you're just about home on a bike ride. You're now focused on the difficulty of the challenges at hand, not on what you want to accomplish. I'm not just moving forward, and I haven't failed yet. I literally, I don't even know what it would be like to spiritually get to failure. Can you imagine? Like, there's certain scriptures that talk about people who prayed through the night, and that they prayed for days and things like that. Like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. However, I don't think that that's necessarily how we should do it. It should be more in, taking care of our fellow man. And I would love to be able to feel what it felt like to know what my spirit is capable of, because that would be crazy to figure that out, right? Just like anything else in life, I do not believe we have any idea and what it would be like to actually fulfill our true potential. Like, do we really believe, like those of us who believe in God, do we really believe God's just sitting in heaven? Like, he's just sitting watching? No, this guy's
popcorn.
Busy. Yeah, he's busy. He's moving. He's got to be. He's got creation upon creation upon creation. I don't know what that takes for him. I don't know but I can't imagine that he's just chilling, waiting for us to come back, right? Like, if we're going to become more godly in this life, we have to constantly and almost just ferociously attack life, and not walk through it slowly, like those cold and timid souls who knew only their victory nor defeat, right?
Yeah.
It's just how it is, man. We have to, I think, and it's a mindset, and it takes tons of time, and we all fail at it, like you said. But yeah, you did it for a month, which I give you kudos for even focusing for a full month. I think what a lot of us have to do to get traction in that direction is just do it for a day. Just for one day, just try it and see what it would look like to just schedule your day, prioritize it, and try to stick within those things. Heck, if I could do that every day, it would be, but that's the challenge of life. That's the fun part. That's the hill. That's us being a mountain goat, is us fighting that constant desire to do nothing. Because if anything's the devil, that's the devil. The devil is complacency. The devil is focusing on, it's too heavy, it's too much. No, it's not. No, it's not. We can carry far more than we ever think we could. We just plain have indoctrinated ourselves, or life has indoctrinated us with our inabilities. It's not true. It's a lie.
Yeah. I remember talking with a good friend named Brandon and talking about potential. And I've always thought, like, man, if I could just reach my potential, there's two things. There's one that's like maybe a little depressive depending on how you think about this, and there's one that's really motivating to me. But I always thought, man, if I could just reach my potential. And he said, Bryan, if you ever reached your potential, can you imagine how boring that would be? If you actually you actually reached your peak, there's no up from here. Wow. Oh my God, that makes a lot of sense. That's maybe the depressive side a little bit. Like you could think about it and say like, oh well. But the motivating to me is there's always, like, no matter how much I go, there's always a new gear. There's always a new level. There's always a new opportunity, because that's how we're built.
Yes.
Spiritually, especially, that's how we are built. And that's given me great motivation. I've taken it to be that way, as opposed to in the past, I was like, oh, I'm never reaching my potential. And looking at it glass half empty of like, oh, I never reached my potential. And now it's like, oh, I'm going to do everything I can to reach my potential, and knowing there's never a limit to that.
I love that. Yeah. And I don't think we know what the
limits,
I know. The limits truly are they're outside of what we're capable of understanding, even in this life. Supposing there's another life after this, or we get another opportunity to keep progressing and growing eternally, who knows what we actually have the capacity to do. But all we can really do is play in this world right now, and that is enough. I've never known anyone that's ever fully met their potential, especially in all aspects of their life. There's certain people that in some areas do, right? But I do not think that we're capable of it, and that could be discouraging, like you're talking about. It could be discouraging. So then why do it? And I think that's what a lot of us do.
That's why I'm saying is, if you take that perspective on it, it's like, oh, I'll never reach my potential, then that's the excuse to not try.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I discard that in my mind and work all that I can to not think of it that way, and to think of, man, if I could, I'm going to do everything I can to get every drop out of today, to be absolutely present in this moment. And that, like going back to what you said, is that quality time with the people that I'm with. If I'm actually here, if I'm not thinking about, like even right now, like think about this. I could be thinking about if I get a phone call, or if you get a phone call, or I could think my mind can wander in a million different places that's not actually right here with you and me. And I think that we sacrifice now, and what's really potential of what we can have right now with the people that are around us, because of those things. And we let our brain, we let our mind wander on things that aren't right in front of us. And there are times when, if you're meditating, there are times where you could be focusing on a problem and work, that's fine. But if you're with somebody else and you've dedicated that time, if you're with one of your kids, and your phone is in between you, you're not with your kids. No. You're not. Like, you're just not.
No, it's like you see your kids all the time. They bring their friends over, then they both sit on their phone on your couch. And you're like, you guys doing? Hanging out? No, you're not. I mean, you might be hanging, but you're not actually getting to know each other. Which, I mean, that would take me off on another tangent with one of the pillars of happiness. And I think it's one of those things that is super important that we recognize too. And that is, living intentionally has to do with, really, it's all about accomplishing happiness, right? Finding true happiness, finding true accomplishment in life, and finding a reason, right? And one of those pillars that I think is super important is connection. And I think a lot of us, we think we're connected, but we're not, because true connection can't happen without authenticity. And if you're not authentic, you're never going to be able to connect with anybody else. You may connect with them, but you're connecting on a facade, right?
Yes.
And so now you're fake connecting with them, so you never feel truly loved. And if you never feel truly loved, you never feel truly appreciated. And if you're never being authentic with the world around you, then you're never actually connected to anyone. And you live your entire life as a non-connected individual. And that absolutely is not happiness. It's fake. And you can find happiness in the middle of it all by pretending that you are being authentic and that people know who you really are. But if you're not being truly authentic, you can't connect. And I think one of the greatest problems with us being authentic is that when I went through my spiritual revolution, call it whatever, I had to take full responsibility. And I think a lot of people struggle to intentionally take full responsibility for their life. And I was pushed into a corner. I stared into the abyss of darkness where I believed not in God or anything else. I wanted to push it all away. And when I came to that place, there was a saying that came to my mind, because I wanted to blame it on my parents. I wanted to blame all my religious indoctrination, blah, 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 on my parents. I wanted to be frustrated and upset. And I realized, though, that since I've been 18, I had the choice. And I didn't make the choice any different from 18 to 35 years old. I didn't make a different choice. So therefore, can I really blame anybody else? And so the saying that came to my mind, I've repeated to myself so many times, is I am who I am because I chose to be me. And I took full acceptance of who I was, and it made me 100% different because my wife started to get the full me. I started to just be real. I think if anything, people know me, they know I'm real, especially in the last 10 years of my life. This is just me. If you don't like me, that's okay. I understand. And I don't know that I'd like me either, but this is me. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to change, and I'm not going to respect other people, and I'm not going to strive to be better, but I'm not going to be outwardly different than I inwardly am. And that has made this connection with the people around me so much more. They know who they're going to get, right? They can trust that. I mean, heck, you can trust a pirate way better than you can trust somebody that isn't, because you know he's a pirate and you know he's going to steal. And he's authentic about it. So at least you know. You like him. You're not going to trust him with your wallet or your kids, but you know who he is. I think it's super important that authenticity is important, and connection is absolutely a pillar of happiness. You cannot experience true joy in life without real, true connection with at least one person. You can't be an open book to everybody, or they'll color in the pages, right? But you have to have at least that one person, that one cheerleader, that one confidant, that person that you can. And my wife, for me, is that one, but I've found so many more. That people that I know are authentic, like you. People that are real, that are authentic, that will tell you straight to your face how it is, and those are hard friends to find, and it's important to find them. It's important to find them.
I want to respond a little bit to the authenticity principle.
I changed direction there.
No, I actually love it. I, like you, believe that most people are duplicitous, living dual lives.
Yeah.
The one that's in here and the one that you let people see, right? And the more that you connect those two, the more authentic you are. One of the things I just got to drive home is being authentic doesn't mean you're a jerk. Being authentic doesn't mean you're a punk. I just think that sometimes the way that happens in social right now is like, be authentically you, AKA just be a jerk to everybody and be a troll on everywhere. Like, no, there's still being authentic. Like when you look at authentic who you are, it's stripped of ego. It's stripped of, I've got to be seen as successful. I can't mess up, and no one's going to know these things about me. Like that's the ego protecting some facade, that facade of the dual, the second person, which is just a bunch of garbage. Actually who we are. And I recognize that we all have different personality. I'm not saying that you and I are identical, but actually who we are, there's pure goodness, and there's striving and effort and energy, and there's just a ton there. I just got to say the word, because I haven't talked about authenticity, is it's just not being a jerk. It's not like, I just get to say whatever I want. Yes. I mean, say what is part of who you are and say authentic, but it doesn't mean you get to be a jerk.
Well, I love that.
I'm saying that because I don't think you are a jerk. I'm just saying some people misinterpret that statement.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of people, I am who I am is one of the worst statements you could ever say. I am who I am is a cop-out of all things. Because you're never who you're not. Being authentic is not about just I am who I am and you're just gonna have to deal with it. No, that's a narcissist. Let's have reality here. When I went through this spiritual thing, and this is another kind of story for me that's kind of cool. I didn't know who I was. I was raised in a strong religious family. Put down a lot. I put myself down a lot. I beat the heck out of myself. I never felt good enough. I mean, I had this welling. My Goliath that I had to overcome was that I wasn't good enough. That was my Goliath. I felt not good enough, so it drove me. The reason I drove in motocross, the reason it became everything to me is because when I could beat somebody, I felt good enough, right? So when a 30-year-old man could go out and beat this 16-year-old kid in a race, in a nationals race or something, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm somebody. And it was a fake feeling of accomplishment, but it was what drove me because I didn't know who I was. So the first thing because as I stepped back and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know what. It was I hit rock bottom. But like they say, dude, rock bottom's the best place to start building. You got a solid foundation, right? And so I started building from there, and I had to figure out, okay, who am I? Who truly am I? Well, I'm a champion. I'm a this. I'm a lion. Are you really? And I had to question every single thing. And what are my core values? I can tell you what my values are now. They're smart, moral, visionary, and tenacious. Those are my core values, and they mean everything to me, right? And so you have to figure out, okay, well, what are you made of? Do you believe in God? I had to go back and be like, am I a Christian? Am I really a Christian? Was I indoctrinated to believe that? It's like, I came to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't give a crap whether Jesus lived or not. Do I believe it? Yeah. I didn't then. I didn't know what I believed. So I went to the drawing board. I spent a lot of time praying. I spent every morning, 4 a.m., my walk that I do every morning. Part of my gratitude walk was just trying to be grateful. And as I started being grateful, I started to realize, well, who am I being grateful to for the things that I have in my life? And I had nobody to place that on. I couldn't place it on me because it was stuff I couldn't explain. So all of a sudden, the existence of God became very real because there was things in my life I couldn't explain who to give it to. And so when I started being grateful, I'm like, well, dang it. All right, God, I just need you to tell me if you exist. Did he tell me? No, he didn't. So I came to a conclusion where I just had to choose. And I chose to believe in God. And when I did, that's when the magic happened. That's when I started to feel his presence. Because when you plan in life, God speaks to you. And so when I started to plan to try to figure out my life is when I found him. Another story, sorry for a little bit of emotion. But then as I started getting my core values and I started to figure out who I was and I started to build on this rock bottom position of where I was at, I was able to start figuring out who I truly was and who I truly wanted to be. Because life is a choice. Who you are, I am who I am. No, dude, that's not true. You choose to be who you will be. So who do you want to be? It's not about how you act to other people is not who you are. That's the outside action of an internal whatever, right? That's just how you're being, not who you are. Who you are is different. There's no comparison. It's not anyone else involved. It's just you. And the only place you can find that is by spending time in here. It's the only way. And learning to meditate, learning to dip into some of that, quiet your mind, get rid of the world and figure out who you truly are requires some serious internal reflection. And over time, it's just you figure out who you are. Being authentic, I believe, in most people's lives is just doing the best you can to not hide and not live a duplicated life. Don't try to live something you're not. Don't be something you're not. Don't try to be something you're not. Just strive to be better. But figure out who you are and start writing it down. What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What do you really want? When you lie on your deathbed, what do you want that to look like? Then you can figure out who you are and start drawing the picture. Start painting the picture that you've spent most of your life avoiding by just getting pushed around by the wind and by all the stuff that comes at us in life. Instead, just sit down, take the canvas and start painting you. And that's where you you get the opportunity to be authentic because you found you. You can't be authentic until you know who you are.
Yeah, and that kind of living allows you to learn more about who you can become and that potential. Because as I've thought about what I hope my children, and I'm thinking about each individual child, not just the conglomeration of them, what I hope they will say when I leave this earth, I want it to be specific. I don't want it to just be like, oh, Dad was good. He was good. He was a good guy.
He left me lots of money.
Like no, my dad was good. That it just feels so generic. And I want my kids to be able to say this and this and this and this. And so because of that clarity and understanding of what I intend with that relationship,
Love it.
that how they experience me, it helps those moments when I've got 5 minutes. I've got 4.5 minutes before I got to go there. But I've got 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend them on my phone. I got a kid in front of me. I'm going to spend it with this kid doing whatever I can for 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love
those little things. It's those little
4
things.
minutes can change their life.
It certainly changes
Might only
mine.
be 4 minutes in yours, but it could be.
It certainly changes mine. That's the interesting thing is, while that's my intent, even if I don't arrive, like I don't know the finish line, if that's my intent and I continue down that path, it changes me.
Yeah.
Because those 4.5 minutes were magical for me because I felt that focus. I felt that presence versus the distraction or the, I got to go.
I love it. And you made a choice. Yeah. And I love that. I love that, man. It's good.
Well, you've been good to my kids. I love my kids. They're awesome.
I love your kids, man. They're awesome.
They're fun.
Yeah.
Well, Danjee, we've said a lot, man. Yeah. There's something else on your mind that we haven't chatted about that we need to, because I don't want to lose opportunity here.
Dude, I think the only thing that I think we didn't talk enough about, and that is gratitude. These 3 pillars, do you remember them? There's gratitude, progress, and connection. And I absolutely believe, now this came to me at about 9:30 at night, just sitting there like, what does happiness really look like? And it all started because I I enjoy doing service for people, and I enjoy it more as a selfish reason because when I do it, I feel good, right? And I believe it's one of God's irrefutable laws. It's one of those things. You do good, you get good. And if I do good to people, I get good. I feel good. And gratitude came to my mind because I started thinking about like, why? You know, I did have a thought years ago when I was praying about it, and a thought came to my mind about service, and it says that, you know, just a thought, or, you know, call it God, whatever. It says that service reunites or unites the soul and the body and rededicates the soul to its preordained purpose. And that meant a lot to me, right? From a religious standpoint, and spiritual standpoint, it touched my soul. And so I've thought of it and meditated on it. And I was kind of meditating on that because I had just done some service that day, and I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, so that makes me happy. And I was in a dark place a little bit, right? Like a difficult challenge in my life. And so to feel that feeling of service, and it made me happy. It's like, okay, how do I tap into that? Like, why is it that it seems like the whole world just, we go in all sorts of directions, but really all we're trying to find is happiness. What does true happiness look like, and how do we get it? And so I started thinking about that. And I'm like, well, what are the really main, absolute important things that you have to have? And that's how I came up with gratitude, progress, and connection. And I thought the gratitude one has changed my life because I realized that as I thought to myself, why am I doing service? Well, it's selfish. Yeah, I want to get paid back. But there was another thing that was super important that I had to recognize. What really propels me to do service is that I am so thankful that I can. I'm so thankful that God has given me what I have to be able to help a person. And if I don't use it for that purpose, I'm neglecting it, and I'm being selfish with it, and I'm not sharing it. And I don't have a lot of talents in life. So the few talents that I do have, which I have arms and legs and feet, and I can work hard, that's something I can do. I can mow a person's lawn. I can help them move something. I can help them change a tire. I can pull them off the road. I can open doors. I can hug people when they need it. I can do those things. God gave me at least that much talent. And it made me realize that one of the greatest pieces or things that we miss, I think, about gratitude is that it's the greatest form of faith. Faith is a principle of action in intelligent beings, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you're being faithful, you're doing something. Well, God commanded us to love thy neighbor as thyself, right? To love them, to serve God's children. That if we're in the service of your fellow man, you're in the service of God. And so, therefore, if you're doing that, and you're doing it because you can, right? Then gratitude is the propulsion, which I believe it is, because you can. Now, here's the deal: you can go out and do service because you're like, the church are doing it, or these people are doing it, or I signed up for this thing, but you'll almost never walk away with a bad attitude because there's a blessing involved. But I believe that true gratitude understood creates action, and that's why it's the greatest form of faith. Because when you're grateful enough for your legs and you see somebody without legs pushing themselves and struggling in a wheelchair, you would take a very low person or dark person to drive by that and not be propelled to help. Because the gratitude for what we have that propels us to take care of others is faith. And it's our greatest faith. It's action, and it's gratitude fully understood. And I believe, too, just as a pillar of happiness, that without gratitude, you cannot find happiness. It's impossible. That's the three things, the three pillars, way one of them falls. Happiness goes away. You cannot, if you're ungrateful, if your heart's ungrateful and you're constantly in a bitter place because you haven't got enough and you're comparing to other people and you don't have this and you don't have that, you never can feel happiness. Your kids will be, your business isn't doing good, so you're struggling, and your kids come in and they're like, Dad, I love you, and I got this, and they should, and you feel half of it because you are so deep into your own selfish stupidity that you can't allow yourself to feel gratitude. And that's difficult. It's difficult, and it's a challenge. I mean, literally that 4:00 morning, I start every time with gratitude. I just thank God for just the things that happened yesterday, because it's all I can really remember because I'm getting old and I can't remember stuff. But if you just thank him for the things that you can think of, like sometimes it's dumb stuff. Like I can think of, I appreciate the fact that Tiffany made me breakfast, or I appreciate the fact that she came in and kissed me on the cheek. I appreciate the fact that my son came in and gave me a hug for no reason. When you start to remind yourself of how many blessings you have, it gets really difficult to avoid the fact that gratitude is important, and it's going to start consuming you. But it's just like an affirmation. If we don't consistently push it into our heart, we lose it. So we have to consistently seek to look and focus on the things that we get in our life and gratitude. And so that is a super important thing, and a reason I believe that it is an absolute blocker to any kind of true happiness in life without it.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I would talk about, if there was one thing.
Well, hearing you say that has been like eye-opening over here for me to realize. I don't think that I ever recognized gratitude being a talent. And a talent that everybody could have.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a beautiful way to put it and think about it. That sometimes we think, oh, I don't have that much talent, or I don't have that many gifts, or I'm not that gifted. You know, you hear that in some of the sports realms or whatever the case is. Kids in high how you hear all the time, like, where are your talents? You know, to think of gratitude as a talent and a muscle that can be worked in such a way that makes a difference. Totally. Every time you go get a rung up on the ladder of whatever it is, life, relationship, success, family, whatever, if there's gratitude, it makes it all the more meaningful, actually.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that you just need to have a grateful heart, which means that you're just looking, your heart, the goal and true potential would be to get to where your heart is always grateful, even for the challenges, even for the struggles. And that's hard, right? I mean, we hear about these stories of people praying for challenges and weird stuff like that, or they're going through a massive challenge in their life. They lose a son, but they pray and thank God for the challenge. And things like that, it are massive for me. But to think of just, I love that you said exercising it, because that's literally what I did without recognizing it. Is just, it pulled me through so much in the last 10 years of my life. Just that morning walk at 4:30, 5 o'clock a.m. by myself, just thanking God is nothing more than going to the gym, just the spiritual gym. I'm just there doing some reps. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm reminding myself, and it has gotten better and better and better. The storm is slowly starting to dissipate a little bit, and I'm going to seek another one. As soon as I'm out and I see the sun for a second, I'm going to find another storm to fight, because that's where we find, and I'm going to find another hill to climb. I think that if we are constantly doing that exercise, I think that that is one of the most important things we could do in life to find happiness. Exercise gratitude every day, connect every single day, and find something to just to feel the success and be grateful for the fact that you were able to overcome something. You got up 20 minutes earlier than you did yesterday, or you actually didn't eat those chips, or whatever, right? It's just something. Just find progress in something.
Stagnancy, avoidance is the opposite. And if you want to become like the Billy Goat Danjee Moser,
Mountain Goat.
I had to put it in there. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here, Danjee.
Appreciate it.
I'm confident that the listeners will agree that there's plenty here to digest from the experiences you've had of really finding out what you are, who you are, what makes you you, how you get in alignment, how you find out the progress you need to make and be grateful.
It's my pleasure. I mean, I appreciate being able to share it. I think we're all pretty much the same, dude. We're all fighting the same fight. We're all just in a different battle. But it's, we're all human and all trying to do the same kind of things. Happiness is what we're all looking for. And so I don't think we're all too much different, but not that I'm not any specialer than the next, right? And my challenges have probably been far less than most. And my accomplishments and what I've figured out throughout all of it, but I appreciate being able to share it.
We're glad to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thank you for joining us on The Intentional Way. I'm Bryan Hatch, and it's been a true privilege to share this time with you. If today's episode has inspired you in any way, shape, or form, please subscribe, follow, and download our episodes. Your support not only helps us grow, it also enables us to bring more insightful conversations and exceptional guests right to you. Living intentionally begins with a single step, yours. So let's make the most of it. Until next time, seek intention by being completely present.